Hey, what's going on? Thanks for joining me for another video. Today I wanted to do a video kind of giving my thoughts after a weekend with the new Nintendo Switch. So one of my favorite things to do in my free time when it's not a beautiful day like it is out today is play games. And games is something I grew up playing, and Nintendo was kind of always there as my primary source of games growing up. I think my first system was a Game Boy Pocket, and then I had a Game Boy Advance SP. Huge Nintendo fan. I've been a diehard Nintendo fan for the longest time, up until recently. You know, I had a GameCube, and then right around the Wii era is when I kind of started to phase out of Nintendo as a whole, and I think that gives me a unique perspective for why I ended up picking up the Switch. So for me, this Nintendo Switch actually ended up being a gift for my family as a Christmas present. I know it's March, but that's just kind of how it worked. So I was really personally pretty much as against the Switch as I possibly could have been. I've been blessed with having an Xbox One S, and I have a PlayStation 4 as well that I got last fall from a friend. And those both offer amazing gaming experiences. So growing up, like I said, I was a diehard Nintendo fanboy. From the time I was a kid with my first Game Boy Pocket, all the way through the GameCube era, I was just diehard Nintendo, and I think a lot of people my age were. I would fall in the millennial age bracket, and I think a lot of those people had become dissuaded with Nintendo over the last 10 or so years, kind of from the Wii through specifically the Wii U generation. For me, the Wii came out at a time when Call of Duty Modern Warfare was a big deal. And at that time, I'm playing games like that against a Wii game. There's just there was so much difference between the two that, especially at my age, being in high school at the time, it was just a no-brainer on playing a game that felt like I was, at the time, like fighting in a war or something like that. It was a lot cooler than, wagging a controller around in the air to see a cursor move on the screen. So needless to say, I didn't really play my Wii very much. I played Zelda, Twilight Princess on it. I had some other games, but honestly, I just never played it. I always favored Xbox over that, or would play a PlayStation game here and there. And I think that's why having this is pretty unique. For me, the Nintendo Switch, like I said, was a gift. It's not something that I would have thought to myself that I would go out and buy, but because it was a gift, I was willing to take a little bit more of a risk on it. I think it really opened my mind to a different perspective on the system that hopefully will help you or someone you know. So I was actually able to go into my local Best Buy on Friday, March 3rd. I think it was there at 10:05 a.m. and I kind of checked the store, didn't see any systems, and found an employee who handed me a flyer and just told me to wait in line. I had no pre-order, and I was able to get one in about 8 minutes, which is a pretty rare thing considering Nintendo just announced they had their biggest console launch in multiple territories ever. And it's pretty crazy. Like I said, I was just able to walk in and get one, got Zelda. It was easy. So that was obviously a pretty cool experience. Then I was kind of deciding, like, is this what I want as my gift? And I ended up deciding yes, and I'm really, really glad I did. So I'm not going to do any kind of unboxing today. If you want to see an unboxing video, there is a lot of really good ones that will show you like 4K slow pans and stuff, and that's not what I'm here today to talk to about. I'm really here to talk to you today about my thoughts as a ultra skeptic person who would argue, I grew up with Nintendo, but Nintendo didn't grow up with me. And after kind of talking with a YouTuber that I really respect, he kind of influenced me to create a video about this and just kind of give my opinion. So you know who you are. If you see this, shout out to you. You're a boss. So I will show you some of the different aspects of the system and give my thoughts and opinions on each little part. As many of you know, if you watch my videos, they are not short, and I'll just kind of talk your ear off, but hopefully you're the kind of person that is wanting to hear what I have to say about something like this. So let's get started with the system itself. This is the system itself. You see it in a million different promo videos and all the different ways that you can play it, but this is really what it is. It kind of looks to me like one of those cheap intro level tablets that you see from various brands, just like cheap tablet computers. It's not very big. Here's to my hand. Here's what it looks like. It's not fancy, but honestly, it feels really good. There's a nice matte back on it, a nice big screen here in the front. You can see the metal rails on the side, the buttons on the top, yada, like every other video will show you, yada, yada, yada. It's all this great stuff. But I was really pleasantly surprised to find out that this part feels like solid. It doesn't feel like creaky and flimsy like a cheap tablet might feel. So even though it kind of looks like a blocky intro level tablet, not something more elegant like an iPad, I think I like the build quality, and I think it's really nice. I like that the speakers are right in the front, and generally I don't really care about front facing speakers, but in this case it's really nice, especially since I prefer using it as a handheld, even though they won't market it like that. It's nice to have the speakers kind of right there so that you're making sure you hear everything, and the EQ of the speakers to me does not sound harsh. They sound like small speakers, but to someone who does care decently about sound, coming from a background of my brother is an audio engineer, so I care about good sound, but they sound like small speakers, but I don't think you're going to be like, wow, these sound horrible. They sound really good, especially if you're just kind of laying in bed or sitting on your couch playing the game. I do love these rails on the side too. Again, this whole package right here just feels really solid to me, which is good, considering that you might be wondering if it is actually solid, and I can say, yeah, it is. I'm sure you've heard reports about the kickstand, which honestly feels pretty flimsy, but if you're just careful with it, you just kind of click it out there. It feels like you're going to break it off right about there, and then hear that click. That's where it goes, and it stays out. So yeah, it's kind of flimsy, but honestly, if you know how to use it and you're not trying to balance it on a pillow or out in a hurricane or something, you're not going to have that hard of a time with it. Could it be more sturdy? Heck yeah, they'll probably make a revised one with a better kickstand, but don't let something that small deter you from getting something like this. It's just, the internet likes to sensationalize things. So that's that. On the top, you got a heat vent. I have not noticed any real heating problems. I'm playing it mostly in handheld mode, where it's going to get heat from my hands, obviously, and it's going to, get warm, but I haven't noticed it yet, and I have played it extensively, wearing the battery down from top to bottom over a, 2.5, 3 hour cycle like they suggest it has, and honestly, it's not been a problem so far. I haven't been like, wow, this thing is hot. I mean, I have not experienced it getting as hot as, say, an iPhone would if you're playing a game or, running a video call for a long period of time. So that is good to know. I have not tested it playing while charging to get hot. I would imagine it would get a lot hotter while charging it and playing it, but I don't think you're going to burn your hand on this thing. I do love, speaking of charging, that there is a USB-C port at the bottom. This is my first device with USB-C, but as someone who has been using an iPhone for quite a long time, it's nice to finally have a reversible cord made by somebody else, so you're not thinking about which direction your cord is when you plug it in. Super nice. Glad they included that. On the top side, we have the power button, and I would say for me, I have big hands. The power button is pretty small, and it's recessed, but it's not like a hard thing to get to, but it is kind of small, but it also works in its favor, so it stays out of the way. So if you go to press the volume rocker here, which is right next to it, you're not going to accidentally put your switch to sleep, I don't think. Other than that, that basically wraps up the majority of the base unit itself. It feels really good. It's a great lightweight but not cheap feeling, which I like. So yeah, that's that. Moving on to the Joy-Cons. Here's something I was really worried about. How would these Joy-Cons feel, especially to someone with large hands? Honestly, they're great. I have used an Xbox Elite controller. I'm used to the DualShock 4. These are not an Xbox Elite controller, but they honestly feel really good. I have huge hands, like I said, and they feel fine in my hands. I know it's kind of hard to see how they look, and you can't really know how they feel until you feel them, but they're fine, and honestly, I just use them hooked onto the console. The joysticks are nice and light, which is good for a console. They don't have the resistance like an Elite controller would, but honestly, I think it's okay. You wouldn't want it to be much more, I think, in this case, because honestly, to me, the lightness of the Joy-Cons mixed with the solid build of the center feels good in handheld, because you don't want it to be too cumbersome, even at the risk of it feeling better. I think the portability here is a major focus for Nintendo, and I personally just like how it feels. Being someone who cares about build quality, I don't have any reservations on the build quality. Actually, one thing I love too, I was really impressed. I was wondering about these triggers, and they're really clicky, if you can hear. You can kind of hear how they sound, and I like it. I like that there's not a lot of throw to the triggers, especially in handheld mode. You don't want to be constantly having that forward motion on your controllers, and I like my fingers feel really good sitting on them, and they feel really tactile, but not, it's not like squidgy like a DualShock controller, or having like that magnetic pull like the Elite controller and Xbox controllers are going to have. So it's nice. And actually these shoulder buttons are super thin, but again, they're so tactile and responsive that it works for them being as thin as they are. I mean, they're really thin, as you can see, but it just works. I like it. I haven't really had a problem with it. It does take a hot second to get used to, but honestly, I don't think you're going to have a problem with it. I also noticed that the face buttons on the Joy-Cons are very small. I mean, they're really small, especially compared to like a DualShock controller, an Elite controller. The face buttons are significantly smaller, but what they offer in that is they're very clicky, and I like that. They're not like bad clicky, but they just have a good sound to them overall. They feel right for their size, so you never feel like you're accidentally pushing it, or I've never found myself wondering if I did push it, which is nice. Again, they're small, they're supposed to be portable, and they honestly just feel really good for their size. And then playing the controllers sideways, I would definitely recommend using one of these rails that comes with it. Super easy to put on like that. The amount of mass that's added to the shoulder buttons is pretty incredible. I mean, realistically, it's like almost like, it's probably like a third of the width, so that's a pretty big, pretty substantial additional size to the controller. If you are playing something like a Mario Kart here in April or whenever that comes out, I think that would be a good thing. Or if you're playing like this, I haven't played with the Joy-Cons separated while using the system, like just for myself, but it does feel substantially better. But it's just going to be a preference thing if you're by yourself, and if you're playing with friends, I think they make it much more comfortable. So another observation I had about the Joy-Cons, I love the screenshot button. Works great. It works really good. I think it's the fastest way to take a screenshot of any of the three systems. Home button feels great. They kind of got like just a touch of smush to them. I just turned my system on in just the right way. I also really like the plus and minus buttons, but for me, I kind of wish that the plus and minus and the home and screenshot were flipped, but that's just a nitpick. It's not like it's going to change your life, but it would just be nice. But I could also see why they did that, because on the left Joy-Con, you might take a screenshot like all the time while walking around. I don't know. It could happen. I never pressed the minus button while walking around in Zelda, but it could happen. So there's probably a good reason for it. Other than that guys, it's really simple. They're just good controllers, and I think the best use for them is on the system locked in, but that's just an opinion. So next up, I actually want to talk about the Joy-Con grip, which everyone kind of says is the worst thing ever, and they would recommend you spend, a good chunk of what the console costs itself to buy a Pro controller. And I would recommend that if playing extensively on a standard controller, especially if you want to use it on a screen, is your thing, then yeah, the Pro controller is going to be a good option. But I would like to personally say that this is not as bad as everyone makes it out to seem. It's not like mind-blowing. You're not going to have an experience where you're saying this rivals a DualShock or this rivals a Xbox One controller, but it's genuinely for free, that you get it with your system. It's really not that bad. The Joy-Cons have a great sliding motion, and this is just genuinely not that bad. I hate saying it like that, where it's not that bad, but I truly find that it's understated how flexible this is as an option, especially for free, and especially if you're trying not to buy every single little piece of hardware that Nintendo is trying to sell you. So the grips themselves are nice and round. Again, it's a matte plastic, so it's not as nice as like the Elite controller matte plastic, but it's definitely not ultra slippery. Everything kind of sits in your hand. It does kind of look weird being like a big square. You kind of feel like you're holding a sandwich or something, but it works good. It has good access to the shoulder buttons. It's a little more narrow than you might be used to, and but honestly, it's not as bad as everyone thinks it is online. So I would recommend that you give it a go before getting a Pro controller. Save yourself the $70 and just try it first to see how much it really matters, especially if this is a secondary system or a tertiary system. Just try it. That's all I can say is just try it. I think you'll be surprised at how good it actually is. And the weight is great. Again, it gives you access to all the buttons, great, and it kind of almost plays more like a mini Xbox controller, like a travel Xbox controller, than it does like, I feel like the internet just makes it seem like it's the worst thing ever, and it's just really not. So give it a go, see if it's for you. If you hate it and you disagree with me, go buy a Pro controller if you can find one. So a couple other things I wanted to talk about in regards to the system. The dock feels good. It doesn't feel, it's not like super heavy weighted, but it's not light either. It's thick plastic. The back door is really easy to wire cables through. It's really simple. The tablet itself doesn't slide in super easy like most reports are saying. I can confirm that. It's not amazing. There is a pin at the bottom, like a little plate where the USB connector sits, and the plate sits on top of it, and as you drop the console down into the dock, the plate slides down and it lets the pin through, connecting the Switch to the TV. That works really good. Again, it's just not amazing. It doesn't feel like, it's not quite like Apple caliber seamless, but it works fine, and I'm just really gentle when I slide the dock in. I'm not trying to like speed mount it or anything like that, and it's just works really well. But again, just be careful with it. I've heard reports of people scratching their screens, and I would say you probably want to avoid that. The dock also feeds cords out the side, so for someone like me who likes to display, even here in my small little office, the cords coming out the side isn't really that big of a deal. They have enough cord length where they're running in the back out the side where they'll pretty easily turn behind the console, especially when it's in with the Joy-Cons mounted to the tablet itself, where you won't see the cables, but you could always just display it however you want, however it works in your setup. I doubt a lot of people would touch on the power brick. It's nice. It's built really well. Obviously, it's USB-C. It's kind of funny if you compare the power brick to the size of the console. It seems really big, but it's actually great just because it's all integrated. It's one cable. I would say the cable, you'll probably find some specs online, but I would say it's in line with most other cable lengths, like your Xbox or your PlayStation cord. I would say it's probably in the 5 to 6 foot range. Yeah, probably about 5 feet. So it works really good. Again, it's reversible, so you can just plug in your Switch. However it works, you can plug directly in here, or you can run it into the back of the dock. It's the same cord, same box. Pretty happy with this overall, and it's nice that you can buy extras for, $30. Kind of expensive, but it's not like outrageous, I guess. So I also wanted to talk about this bad boy, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I'm a big proponent of digital games. I actually got this physically. This is the first physical game I've bought in almost a year and a half. Since Nintendo purchases are not tied to an account, but rather to a console, I'm kind of waiting to go digital on Nintendo games before I do that. And honestly, these things are so stinking small. I mean, look at this. This is smaller than a standard SD card. It's got a big, chunky connector on the back. It feels really good. I'm glad it's this size being physical, and I'm glad that the cases are smaller than cases. But I mean, look at that. It's like barely the same size as my thumb. That's small enough where it's not really going to be in your way. I figured for a game like Zelda 2, I'm going to keep it as long as I have the system, and it kind of works. So if you're into buying it digitally, go for it. I think it's totally worth it. But for me, as a digital buyer, I actually got it physically. One thing I forgot to add is that the game card slot is up here on the right, and the games go in with the logo facing towards you. I kind of had to figure that out. It kind of feels like you have to push your finger down pretty far to get the thing to click in. It's not like the end of the world, but it was kind of like, am I putting this in the right way? And it ended up working fine. This is just like kind of a loose like flap kind of thing that opens. It clicks in, but it's like a flap style door, not a like a hinge. So you just kind of take it, put the game card in. You'll see you just kind of got to push it in there a little bit. It's not, you don't have to like push, but just something for those people like me who want to try to feel the system without touching it. That's just kind of like you have to push a little bit more than you'd expect, more than like I remember my DS. It's more than that. You have to. There's a little bit of a recessed area where you have to push down into. So. One of my favorite things is when you put the Joy-Con into the Switch console. It's just a geeky little detail, but I think it's well employed here, is that it actually makes like the iconic Switch sound when you put each Joy-Con in the controller, like this. Check this out. Yeah, that's good. Let's do it with the other side here. Ready? Yeah. That's nice. Hopefully you could hear that. It like seamlessly slides in, and I love how you can kind of see like a little bumper appear on the side of the screen when you hook it in. It's pretty sweet. So all in all, this is really cool. Again, being someone who gets digital games, this is my case that I have, my one game case. And I love that it's smaller. I actually have a game that I'm borrowing from a friend that's physical. Here, just a kind of size comparison. I love that it's so much smaller. It's the same basic length dimensions, but it's a little bit thinner, and as you can see, it's a little shorter. This is just Uncharted collection case. You know, I like how small these are. I think it's a lot more compact, especially given that the game card is so stinking small. One thing that my childhood wanted was more in the case when you opened it. It's awesome to get this beautiful kind of pastel looking artwork, but there's a little game holder, and that's literally it. So I was hoping that there would be a reason for them to have these tabs here, you know, maybe a little like picture book like I always used to look through when I was a kid. But you know, you have the game to play on, you know, what is essentially a pro level Game Boy, and that's pretty cool. So no complaints, but it would have been cool to see stickers or something thrown in there, but it's not a big deal at the end of the day. So now that we've gotten through all of my monotonous detail about how I feel about each part of the Switch, I want to talk about the Switch as a system. You know, I love the way it feels. It feels like a premium handheld, and that's really what I feel like. The Switch feels like a premium handheld that can also be a console. And I know they're marketing as a console, and I think part of me feels like that's smart, and this is kind of just me thinking off the cuff here, guys. I feel like it's smart to market it as a console because it does plug into your TV, but at the same time, I think it really shines as a handheld. It obviously can't compete with things like the Xbox One S or Project Scorpio or PlayStation 4, the PlayStation 4 Pro even, or a PC, and I think the thing that has surprised me most is how much I found that I don't care. As someone who loves the premium experience, someone who's looking forward to getting Project Scorpio when that comes out, I'm genuinely happy with how much I don't care about that kind of stuff with the Switch. It's taking me back to I'm 25 almost. It's taken me back in my free time to play video games. It takes me to how I felt as a kid, where I'm holding this handheld and just becoming engrossed in this experience that is focused on being a game and not a, you know, explosion summer movie experience. Zelda specifically being the only game I own, because that's pretty much the only game worth getting at launch for most hardcore players. I know there's other stuff that's good, so don't hate me in the comments, but there's not a lot of variety, and Zelda is clearly the draw to this system right now, and it's an amazing game. It focuses so much on being a game and not just mind-blowing visuals. There's other games that are coming out right now that are amazing games that have just unreal graphics, especially on more professional hardware or newer hardware even, but Zelda shines as a game in its unique art style. It's like playing a cartoon, but in a way that I think connects with people of all ages. It doesn't feel childlike. It's very, I don't know, it's kind of captivating, and the longer you play it, the more that sense grows on you. It feels both equal parts game and equal parts art. And I think a lot of games nail gameplay or art and not both. And I think Zelda, it's getting basically 10s across the board. It's just pretty incredible. And I was ultra skeptical. If I'm being totally honest, a week before launch, I was just trying to talk myself out of it and just hating on it and saying, oh, I'll just wait till there's more to play. But honestly, this is a good switch from what is normally a game console. Like I have Horizon Zero Dawn for when I can play that. I love my Xbox is my main system, and I play multi-plats and exclusive on it, and I just love it. But this is just something different, and I think that's what I want to encourage you to think about it. Don't compare it to the other systems, because it won't. It won't compare. But I think what Nintendo has the capability to do is truly lure back people like me who basically said Nintendo is dead to me. People that say, I grew up with Nintendo, but Nintendo didn't grow up with me. I think it's pretty incredible how I feel about this, having had it for the first weekend, sinking my teeth into a game like Zelda and realizing I can walk around with this. I'm not the person who's going to go to the DMV and sit there with my Switch or sit at the doctor's office, though it's totally capable of doing that. I just use it for home use or maybe the occasional road trip if I actually feel like I need entertainment outside of the people I'm with. So it's just a cool experience. It gets you away from the traditional norms of kind of sitting in front of a TV. And while you can do that with Switch, I think it's just, I can't stress to you enough that this thing, to me, it's a handheld. This is how they show it. Yes, you can dock it, and yes, you can extend that, and I think, if you're playing Mario Kart, that might be an awesome way to do it. But I love the form factor and how it feels, and for me, I treat it as a handheld. Again, I can't say how happy I am with it as a handheld. When I think of it like a home console, I feel like that immediately makes me want to compare it to something like an Xbox One S or a PlayStation 4. And it can't compete in any way with those that people who like those are going to associate with. You could argue, the games are, Zelda is just as good as Horizon Zero Dawn, or is just as good as a game like Halo or Gears or whatever. Obviously, they're different genres overall. But I think if you just decide that the console is fun, and if you decide to give it a chance to kind of relive and hope for the best, and that's honestly what I'm doing. I'm hoping for the best. I'm hoping that Nintendo I'm giving them another chance after basically 2 generations off. I never got a 3DS or a 2DS or 3DS XL or whatever. I never got one, so I'm giving them a chance again to wow me, and I'm just hoping that they put GameCube games on here, the Virtual Console, because I still have my GameCube. I actually do bust it out every once in a while, just to kind of experience some of those old games again, and they're all-time classics, and I really think that Nintendo has the opportunity, in all of their weirdness and all of their inability to seemingly catch up and be with the time. There's still friend codes on this. It's just like, some of the stuff is mind-bogglingly dumb, in my opinion, but I still love it, and that's what really surprises me. So hopefully this video helps you overall, just to say it is a risk buying one, just like any console. You have to hope that they support it the way you want to, but I really think they will. I think this thing is unique enough, and I think that people around the world are treating it as this kind of like alternative option to gaming, and I think it's going to present some really unique experiences of anything good Nintendo experiences. And that's, for me, that's what it ultimately comes down to. Is, to me, this is an amazing piece of hardware for Nintendo experiences. And I say that because I am not going to play any multiplats on this thing. I don't care. Multiplats are for my Xbox, or some of you it's for your PlayStation, whatever you have or prefer. This is not a multiplat machine. This is a Nintendo Switch exclusives machine. I think it's going to be really great for that. I'm excited to play Zelda more. I've gotten lots of hours, and it's just a world that for the first time in a long time I feel like I can get lost in. I don't think about it so much as like it's so game heavy, but it doesn't feel game heavy, which is pretty incredible. Again, it's like this mix of Horizon Zero Dawn meets a pastel painting meets a Disney movie. It just feels like all of those, and there's barely any voiceover in it. And it's just like somehow it's just this incredible experience. So hopefully this video, I know it's super long, and that's just how my videos are, but I hope that this whole kind of transparent dialogue helps you decide this thing isn't for me, or this thing is awesome and it is for me. I can't wait to find one. I would encourage you, if you can find one, if you liked handhelds as a kid, if you're wanting to give Nintendo another chance, if you are looking for something different, if you're looking for something that you can take on the go, I think this is an amazing piece of hardware, and it really has surprised me more than I could have ever guessed it would have. So thanks for watching, guys. Again, I know it was long, but I appreciate you hanging with me. Have an awesome day. We got an awesome day out here in Michigan, and I hope it's great for you too. Thanks.